Hello, happy Wednesday. We're doing our Instagram live on Wednesday instead of Thursday today because we have a special guest who I'm very excited to have join me today. We're going to be talking about race. So I'm really glad that I have Liv Christian joining me. I'm waiting for her to hop in right now. Thank you for those joining. I'm waving at you. This is awesome. I just need to give a few minutes for Olivia. While we wait for her to join, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Solomon. I'm the founder of Atheneum Collective. We are a online education platform where we crowdsource knowledge, and there she is. I wonder if I have to get her. Hold, there she is. View. Go. See, we're waiting for her to join. Anyway, we crowdsource knowledge. We have an online education platform. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I was just doing my little introduction while I was waiting for you to join.
Sounds great.
Just talking a little bit about what is Atheneum Collective and how we are crowdsourcing knowledge to empower people with information, skills, knowledge to, power up their day and their careers, and having these conversations as well to talk about a variety of different topics. And I'm really excited about what we're talking about today.
Me too.
Because it really matters. It matters more now than ever. And I think we want to talk about race, but we also want to really talk about resources that we can use to educate and empower people to be anti-racist, which is a whole, other part of this. And I'm thrilled to have Olivia here because Olivia is the content director for diversity marketing at Hope Creative. And she is an integral part of the Atheneum Collective team. She helps me bring a lot of my ideas to life through her magic of words. She's an incredible writer. And when she's not writing social media copy and blogs and all the other great things, she's working on a script. So I'm going to be able to say, I remember when she was just starting out.
No, I find something, yay.
So Olivia actually worked with me and helped me put together a really incredible resource guide that we shared on Atheneum Collective with resources to really help educate and empower and give you information to help you to really learn, and resources to understand what it means not to just be racist, but to be anti-racist. And there is a definite distinction to that.
Of course.
So we want to share those resources. And before we get into that, I would love to have Olivia kind of introduce herself and tell us a little about her background.
Yeah, so I am from this tiny town called Sandwich, Massachusetts. It's on the Cape, and it is 98% white. So that was interesting growing up so my mother is white, my father is black, and I grew up in mostly white environments. Around white people, and always felt like the other, and hearing that I wasn't, from my mom and family members and friends, but always feeling like, wow, why do I feel so different? Like, why in certain instances am I being treated different? Why are people assuming that I would have voted for Barack Obama, in high school if I could have,
right.
which I would have, or like why, my cousin Madeline, who I grew up with, who's also a really good friend of mine, people asked me if I was adopted, like, how can you two be cousins?
Interesting.
Little things, that like stick with you when you're a kid. And then, I go to college, and I learn a lot about race. I learn a lot about anti-racism. And what's really amazing is just realizing that I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? Like realizing that there are words for all of these microaggressions.
Exactly.
So that's my background. And I'm a creative as well. I do anti-racist work through my creative. So basically every screenplay I write has to do with the Black community, and also just putting Black folks in roles that are like everyday roles, you know, like the script I just wrote is about a laundry attendant, you know, like we can put Black people everywhere and we need to start doing that. So that's like my goal in the anti-racist like writing work that I do.
Well, I have to say, I personally really appreciate, because when, you know, when George Floyd, that whole horrific incident happened, and he was murdered, I think that was the place where I was like, oh my God, I want to say something.
Right.
I don't know what to say. And I even told you, you know what, I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing.
Yes.
And you were awesome, because you're like, well, guess what? Here's some books that I think you need to read. And you know what? It was really great, because I realized, well, I was afraid to say the wrong thing. I'd rather say the wrong thing and learn.
Right.
And grow from that than stay silent. And I feel so much more empowered.
Right.
With ways of thinking and understanding my own biases and my own prejudices, that, you know, and that there is a difference when you say, oh, I don't think I'm racist, to I am anti-racist, which means we have to take some very uncomfortable looks at ourselves.
Exactly. And forcing yourself to be uncomfortable right now, especially as a white woman, is so important. Like, and a lot of people aren't doing this work, you know, like a lot of people are really resisting the change and resisting, you know, recognizing privilege, and that, you know, they have the power to uplift the Black community, but they're afraid of change, and they're afraid that some of their privilege will be displaced if we're all equal, you know? So I do commend you for the work that you're doing to empower yourself and to learn. And yeah, just be really uncomfy.
Yeah, oh, believe me, I've been very uncomfortable. And it's good though, because I'm having really good conversations with my white friends, with my husband. I'm in a book club. We are all reading the book Citizen, which is a lyric, you know, it's kind of like a poem. It's a bunch of vignettes. So we're all going to be discussing this on Friday, which is great, because we all want to do the work, because we want to have a voice. Right. And help become truly anti-racist. So now we're sort of in that learn. What do I need to know? What have I not been thinking about? Because let's face it, a lot of it is that it's not that you don't know, you're just not really spending time thinking about it. And that's
exactly. And you know, sitting from your position and any white person's position, it's not something you have to think on a daily basis. So you have to make yourself think about it on a daily basis. Like, I've been seeing a lot of posts and some articles going around just like about how people are tired of hearing about this. It's like, imagine waking up every single day and having to deal with this, you know? I take so much pride in who I am and my identity, but it still can be really hard. So, but yeah.
We can do some hard stuff. We can be uncomfortable for a lot longer.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So I wanted to share with people who are listening some of the resources that you recommended, because they are so good. And I love that we didn't overwhelm, because I've seen a lot of resource guides with like tons of stuff. Yeah. Really kind of just honed it down to some, like, let's start with this. Mm-hmm. And so I thought maybe we'd talk about some of the books you recommended.
Yeah, for sure. And also too, like when going through this, I picked things that I feel like your audience would really benefit from, you know, and kind of to your point about there's a lot of information there. So, you know, this is a way to kind of give like the Atheneum collective spin on anti-racism and what we stand for, you know, your brand stands for. So yeah, I'd love to share some of the things that I've already shared. Yeah. So I know, Lisa, at first, when we started talking, I gave you the resource by Vernee Myers. It's called What If I Say the Wrong Thing? What I love, there it is.
So good.
It's so good. And what I love about it, I mean, the anti-racist work that Vernee Myers does on a daily basis is just incredible. She's currently the director of diversity at Netflix. And I worked there for a hot minute. And like, her, and just like, she's just incredible with the work she does. But what I think is so special about this particular resource is that it just breaks things down in like a very matter-of-fact way. It, you know, gives you, you know, the kind of like the one up and the one down. So it goes through different, you know, types of systematic oppressions, and kind of makes you really take a look at where you fall on that spectrum, and like hopefully will let you realize your privilege. Because yes, I am a Black woman, but I have light skin privilege. I'm college educated.
Yeah.
I grew up in a home where, you know, even if my mama was, you know, working class, I never wanted for anything. So I do have those privileges. But, you know, the way that Renee puts it out in that book is just, it's brilliant. And
yeah. And I like that it goes to what you were just saying. It's all those privileges. We're able-bodied. You know, we don't have to worry about the fact that the curb is not, you know, we can walk up to the curb. We're not in a wheelchair. There's so many things. And again, it goes back to, we aren't really thinking about it. And it gives you a good framework to think about it. I like it a lot. Yeah, it was really helpful. And I like that she gives you scenarios.
She gives you scenarios.
And here's what you should say. Or here's how you know, to think about what you're thinking about.
Right. And what's amazing too is Renee is a Black woman, but she also has been like, these are the things that I've thought and felt, and this is why. And like, just, you know, kind of admitting to that, being, everybody thinks and feels that way. Whether or not everybody can be racist is another topic that we could talk about. I could literally spend the whole 30 minutes talking about, but it's important to like recognize that and like be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when you F up, be honest.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we will mess up. It's inevitable, but we've got to use it as an opportunity to learn.
Exactly.
You don't always know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And you know what I'll say, another thing I'd love to add, I mean, I love to use my voice as a way to educate. I just find it something that, I don't know, it's like within me almost. Not all Black folks feel that way.
Yes.
Not want to be bothered with questions. So I always like to say, find whatever resource guide. This resource guide's amazing. But also like seek out white allies who've been doing this type of work for a really long time. And also Google. Like, you know, obviously you can't believe everything you read on the internet, but there's a lot of really good resources if you literally just type anti-racism into Google.
Yeah, oh my God. There's not only that, is so many amazing companies have put together really, really good resource guides. And I just discovered one that I thought was really interesting, which was America and More. Okay. And he has this 21 days of, you know, like habits that you could do, like a 21-day guide to becoming anti-racist. Exactly. And he has an amazing list of what you can listen to, what you can watch, what you can read, you know, what you can do. So that's another one. We'll add that to our resource guide. So let's talk about some of the other books, because the other one you mentioned, which I did like, which was this. So you want to talk about race? Yes, by
Jumo Lu. It's incredible. This one is a little more, so where Renee's book is like kind of instructional and like give scenarios. This, for me, this one, which I'm also holding right here, it's a little more hard hitting, and language can be a little more harsh, but it's really important to read books like this.
Well, I think it also goes a little deeper into the systemic racism.
Exactly.
And that's some, you know, then the idea of white supremacy and what does that mean, as does white fragility, but this one definitely does.
Exactly. And this, I mean, just like the history that you can hear about this, you know, the one of the chapters that I love so much is like, is police brutality really about race? And it sure is. I mean, the police in the United States was founded to control slaves and make sure they weren't acting up. So, you know, but here we are in 2020 and it's still the same thing. It just is under a different name.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. That I would definitely recommend that.
For sure.
The other book you recommended, which was White Fragility, which is really interesting because this is a white woman's point of view to teach white people what it means to be, you know, fragile, to be afraid to talk about this, to not even wanting to, like you were saying, some people just don't want to listen necessarily or understand what they're thinking. And that was really, I started reading that. And I think even just the way she started, that race is a social construct.
It is. Race isn't real, but it's also the realest thing.
Yeah.
especially, I mean, I wouldn't even say right now, it always has been a social construct that has been made into this monster that really needs to be reined in.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now the other two I haven't read, which is the new Jim Crow and the Color of Law.
Yeah, so the color of law goes into racism within the justice system.
Okay.
We all know could really use a refresh. And then the new Jim Crow just talks about like how racism has evolved. How it started as stealing Africans from Africa and enslaving them. How, we go from slavery to Jim Crow. And now we're dealing with a prison system that is very much like slavery if you break it down and take into consideration the amount of Black folks that are incarcerated, the amount of Black folks who have had their voting rights taken away because they've been incarcerated. Just goes into, and really makes you think. It's kind of like energy, like matter energy, right? It's never changed, it's just shifted into something different. And like, where do we go from here to change that?
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into the one we've mentioned a few videos, but the video 13th.
I'd love to
hear that. I watched that twice in one day.
Yes, I would love to hear the little tidbits that you took out of that.
I mean, I think for me, it goes back to this whole thing. It's so obvious, but we're not spending time looking at it. And I actually wrote it down here because I thought this was the thing that really hit me, because I don't spend a lot of time reading the Constitution, but neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. Mm-hmm. And I never really spent the time, the whole crime part of that, the way they explain the patterns of re-enslaving people through the criminal system, because it's written right there. I mean, you won't be able to vote.
Yeah.
It was really hard hitting. It was really well done. And to me, it was like, wow. Right. So now having seen that and reading these books, it even makes that much more sense. Like, I feel like some people are better at watching and absorbing, and some people are reading and absorbing. To me, the 13th was the really good sort of background that then helped me as I go into more of these to just come from a different perspective.
Right, exactly. And that's important too. I mean, even with Atheneum, you talk about perspective all of the time. And, even a racist perspective could be useful in your learning, because you can pick out exactly what's wrong with it and, make a conscious effort to never do that yourself, or to really continue to work on those unconscious biases you have. So
yeah, exactly. And the thing is because they're unconscious, that it goes back to those microaggressions.
Right.
It's the subtle things that we don't even know we're doing,
exactly.
But they're so ingrained, and we haven't stopped to think about those things. And I always think about this. It's mindfulness in some ways. It's stop and think about what you're thinking about. Go deeper into your own mindset to understand what you're doing. And it's something I believe in, and it's something I'm working on all the time. And now shifting that to this unconscious bias, right, to prejudices that I may have that I don't even know.
Yep.
And spending some time really thinking about what I think about, because the only time I can change it is if I understand it.
Right. And it also has to be a daily thing. You and I were talking about this, and incorporating diversity into Atheneum from here on out. I mean, and I think we have in the past as well. We've done a good job, but we can always do better. And I think, making anti-racism a daily thing is a must. Mm-hmm. It's not something, like a month from now, we should still be having these intense conversations. A year from now, we should continue to have these tough conversations until law is changed. Perspective.
And call me out when you see me doing something that.
Oh, I have no problem.
I'm serious though, because I will only learn
by
what I'm doing. And I've decided that fear, this anticipation of doing something bad,
Yes,
is not going to hold me back. I need to have conversations. I need to listen. I need to understand. And I kind of feel bad looking back through all of, so many of our friends are maybe mixed race couples. And I've never really asked or been aware of the things that maybe they've had to go through, or, like similar to what you went through as you were growing up, and would you want people to ask you, like, how would you want someone to ask you about that? That's the other sort of weird thing about it.
I think so. I think in terms of being asked about my experience, that's an interesting question that I should think about more. I think for me, I'm happy to share my experiences if it's going to be like educational, and if I don't have to say it all the time.
Yeah.
I also think checking in is like one of the best ways to like find out more about somebody, right? So I'm really lucky. I have a lot of incredible white friends. I have a lot of incredible non-Black POC friends who have been checking in, making sure I'm okay, making sure if I need anything. And like at that point, if I choose to vent and talk about my experiences, I can. But, racism is exhausting. So there I'm like, I can't right now. I need to take a step back. The whole creative team has been, especially Emily, has been really great with just like helping me get this content up in the days where I'm like, I can't even think about this. So I think, yeah, in terms of asking about my experience, I think right now it might be a better thing to ask about how you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. You're right. Like, how are you doing with everything that's going on?
Exactly.
I actually did that I have a mentee, and she's Black, and she works, she works in an office where everyone is white, except for, I think there's 3 Black people there. And I asked her, I said, how are you doing with everything going on?
There you go.
And she shared a story with me where her boss said to her that she needed to be careful and make sure she uses really articulate vocabulary. And I was like, what? And, that was total microaggression right there.
I mean, yeah.
I know.
But also, like, I mean, and that's just like the same thing. I was actually reading an article this morning about pronouncing African names and how there are so many people. I still have an incredible friend. Her name is Kande, which I'm probably not pronouncing right. I need to get back on that. But she had people call her Katie for so long.
Oh.
Like, that's not me, so she changed it to Kenny, which is, her nickname. But, just like it's also about like keeping black folks' humanity intact. Like this is who I am. This is the name I was given. I'm proud of this name. Everybody needs to buckle up and learn how to pronounce my name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. That breaks my heart that your mentee had that issue. Also not surprised though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the hard thing is when you're, younger, you're first starting out, mm-hmm. You don't always you don't feel empowered to say, whoa, wait a minute, what do you, I've always articulated, I don't know, what I mean? Like, you don't feel that you can say that. Right. So, but again, that's empowering on the other side of the coin, which is, giving you the ability to stand up and say, no, that's not okay.
Exactly. And that's important too. Also, a really great response to a racist comment or a comment that's filled with microaggressions is, what did you mean by that? Why do you think that way? And then from there going and tweaking, like help or not helping. I mean, there are people who just don't want to hear it. And I have my firm belief that there are people out there who don't care, who are set in their own ways, and unfortunately they won't ever change. I would like to think that there is a greater population of people that do want to. So I think those questions are really important to ask. What did you mean by that? Where did you hear that? And then offer a resource to kind of just switch around that train of thought, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking to her tomorrow. I'm going to mention that. That could be if that happens again.
Yeah.
I will, tell her that's probably a really good idea of a good way to kind of.
Right. And
yeah.
That like her insight and her views and her experience are so valuable in the workplace. They always have been. You know, if she had tried to get a job like this 50 years ago, it would have been less micro and more macro.
Yeah.
But like just
Absolutely.
her experience is gold. Like no one else has that experience. And, you know, hopefully by having her coworkers work with her, they'll realize like I have effed up in the past.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people don't know, and it's all of those things. So one of the other things you recommend, and I'm curious, is we talk about books, and we always talk about sort of the documentaries, but you also really had some great fiction recommendations. And I think sometimes because it's fiction, it might be easier for people to digest and learn without even realizing they're learning.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, I don't read a lot, but when I do read, I read Black lit. So one of my favorite books that changed my life, I read it my senior year in high school. We had to pick a minority author, which could literally mean anything if you really think about it. But I fell in love with Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. It's about this little Black girl who grows up in the Depression era and all she wants is to have eyes. And I mean, anything that Toni Morrison writes is like such a testament to Black experiences and like the plight of the Black community. This book for me in particular really hit me because I grew up wanting to be white. You know, I grew up wishing I was just one or the other, that I wasn't caught between these two worlds. And unfortunately, I don't want to spoil it for you. It doesn't end fabulously. But I do think it changed my point of view on like the things I was thinking and feeling, because I thought I was crazy for a long time. Like, oh, I'm making this up. Racism isn't a problem anymore. We have a Black president. You know, those are the things I told myself growing up to protect myself. It also was, you know, ultimately doing damage. So The Bluest Eye, and I will say about fiction in general, in a way, like a resource guide or like nonfiction will give you all of these like hard facts.
Mm-hmm.
Fiction is like a, you know, made up world, but within Toni Morrison's books, none of this is made up. Like these are all things that happen. So I think like learning Black stories.
Yes, I agree.
Important. And another one that I love, If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin.
Right. And that was a book. I mean, it became a movie.
It became a movie, and oh my gosh, it's incredible. And it's just like a testament of what Black love looks like. You know, when your partner is tangled up in the legal system and things are just sticky and you don't know what to do. So, I mean, those two books I think are my favorite in terms of like just taking a look into like what the Black experiences look like. That's why I love fiction so much.
Yeah, I love fiction. I am an avid reader. I'm going to read all 5 of these, and we're going to talk about them.
You definitely should, and I think we should add some of them to the Atheneum Anti-Racist Book Club.
Yes,
that we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I love it.
Yes,
totally. I'm totally with you, and I love reading fiction. I can read really fast too. So
yeah,
I mean, you know, the nonfiction, it takes me forever to like read, but
fiction. Yeah, I mean. None of these are easy reads. You know, like these are all, actually, I messed up now that I'm looking at it. Sister Outsider is not fiction. It's a collection of memoirs. So I will move that up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
Yeah. So Sister Outsider, Audre Lorde, she's a Black queer activist. And so this is like a look into, I know we were talking the other day about intersectionality and how important that is, especially like with the one up and the one down type thing. So yeah, she goes into like what it's like to be a Black lesbian during her time. So that's also all of these are great. Read all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, I am. I'm definitely going to read. So let's talk a little bit about what can we do? What are some actions? You know, a lot of this is passive. It's like absorbing, which is great because I think that's an amazing way to learn. But let's move to the like, let's grow this, and that to me is the action. What
Exactly.
We have some resources here, which I did them yesterday, by the way.
Yay! Did you sign?
I did.
Great. So yeah, so one thing, I've actually talked to quite a few people. Like I have a neighbor who has a brand new baby and she can't protest. So she's literally been sitting on her couch looking for petitions, looking for places to donate, so that she can help. So I would say signing petitions right now is the petition for George Floyd's, well, actually the GoFundMe and the petition for George Floyd's, justice was the biggest that the internet has ever seen. So that's just a testament to hopefully that people are coming around. But also, I'd love to mention Breonna Taylor's case as well. She was shot dead in her bed by 3 cops, and they are still out. And I don't know, I feel like a very close, I don't know, she just seems like somebody I would have been really good friends with. Just everything you read about her, like she was an award-winning EMT, and there's no justice. So that's a petition that I still have in my bio. I will never take it out of will not take it out of my bio until those men are behind bars. So that's a really important one, right? And then recently, they're hoping to open up Elijah McClain's case. He was a 23-year-old boy who literally went down the street to get an iced tea and was murdered by cops on the way home because he had like a face covering. So, and that's it. And it's awful. So there will also be adding the petition to reopen his case on Atheneum's resource page as well. So those are the two right now that I'm.
And you have Robert Fuller.
Robert Fuller as well. Yep. Yeah. There's so many. And one really cool thing about change.org is if you sign up, they'll also like kind of show you other petitions that like are in line with your values. So yeah, it's great. I think change.org is doing really good work in terms of like just putting racial justice issues at the forefront right now. So I'd suggest change.org.
And then, of course, changing KKK status to a terror organization.
Exactly. Which, like, why wasn't that done decades ago? But
yeah, exactly. But we can do it now.
Exactly. And that would also too, I mean, more than, that's not necessarily about changing law, right? But it's about giving Black people a voice, and like this is a group that literally wanted us dead or either out of this country for how long? It's like an ancient society, and it's 2020. So I feel like getting them declared as a terrorist organization is more of like this is where America is right now, and this is what we believe in, and we're standing up for Black lives.
Yeah, absolutely. That was done, signed.
Yes.
And then you have donate, and this one, I mean, obviously Black Lives Matter, donate, but I really, the Bail Project was, I'd never heard of that. I'm like, wow, it's so true. How many, I mean, because of the whole school to prison pipeline that, you know, as a Black person, you get arrested. If you can't afford bail, you could be waiting for your trial for months and months and months. In fact, there was some statistic that a huge percentage of the people that are in prison are waiting for their trial. And so a lot of times, because they can't afford bail, they will just settle.
Right.
And admit to something they didn't do so they can go home. That's ridiculous.
It's exactly. I mean, if you think about the Central Park Five, that's what happened. Those boys were tortured and just spoken to terribly. They were kids, and they all admitted to this crime they didn't commit because all they wanted to do was go home.
Yeah.
So, and that happened like 20, 30 years ago, 30 years ago now. And of course, they've all been exonerated. They're living their lives. They're doing incredible anti-racist work, although their childhoods were ruined. They've all made it like their life mission to just be incredible people. But yeah, no, it's a very real thing of not being able to post bail. And yeah, the Bail Project's incredible. Also, the Freedom Fund I put on here, it's a Black LGBTQ charity that supports Black queer folks, but also with a special focus on trans people. The amount of trans women, Black trans women that are killed every year is just it's so disproportionate to how many Black people are already killed by law enforcement. So like, we really need to be talking about them. We really need to be recognizing trans humanity and what it is, regardless of your personal thoughts. Everybody is a human being.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the right to live shouldn't be decided by law enforcement. It shouldn't be decided by anybody, really, like, but the person, you know? So yeah, so that's why I added the Freedom Fund in.
I love that. I think these are great. And you know, it's interesting, Emily, I was looking at the comments coming up, and Emily had mentioned, you know, that we were talking about how these in the bail project, where if you know, say you've committed a crime that you didn't commit just to go home, now you can't vote. I mean, it's the whole system. I mean, that's why the 13th, and I saw Anna had mentioned that, you know, watch 13th, and I totally agree. I think that's just such a good foundation.
Yes. So,
okay. Yeah. Then we talk about, obviously, protest. Of course.
Protesting is important. It is. I know I added on a Instagram that is LA based, but depending on whatever city you're in, because I think there are some people watching from the East Coast, it's pretty easy to literally just look up protests. My friend Lindsay, who I actually think is on here, took her little niece to this really cute like bike ride. She's little. She just turned, Lindsay, tell me in the comments how old she just turned. Anyway, she's adorable. She's mixed like me. And it was just so special to see, because like, there are protests that turn violent, usually at the hands of law enforcement, but there are also, you know, ways that like little kids can get involved and like start. She's 3. Yes, she's the cutest thing ever. Yeah, and just like to start getting like kids involved at a young age and fighting racism. So
yeah, and I just want to say, if you are watching and you have, I saw the Loveland Foundation, send us a message. And we will take a look and add that to our resource guide. So anything, you know, that you guys, if you're watching, you have some ideas, things we should be adding, please send it our way. We want to make this, you know, as, you know, inclusive as possible. Okay, so now we've got, of course, vote. Yes. Oh my God, vote.
So voting is so important, especially for white people without criminal records. Voter suppression is so real. I've actually been reading a lot of articles from Black folks being like, please stop asking our people to continue to vote, because a lot of us just can't. So I think they can't, and because of incarceration, right? Because it's like the systematic pipelines. But voting, like, to end voter suppression and like just doing your research and like knowing that this is a really, like, it's so real. Like, people think it's not true that, you know, they're not counting certain votes, that they're, you know, not letting people, they're closing the polling sites and not letting people vote.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's horrific.
I mean, and the electoral college is a mess. Everything about the way that we're running our democracy, while I'm getting really into it right now, is yeah. So yeah, but I think also, like, not only voting, but educating yourself on what voter suppression looks like.
Well, and also, you know what, I've really spent some time thinking about this, is that, you know, everyone votes for the president or the governor or the senators. So it's really important that we start looking at who we are voting for at our local elections.
Yes, absolutely.
Because so much of this can be fixed at the local level.
Yes, and that's really where change starts too.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about law, but I do know, like, that's where the change starts, is like in communities with local reps, like that's where things really start to change from the ground up.
Well, and I also think that it's a really good opportunity for organizations like a Black Lives Matter to help educate us who, you know, what's on the ballot, and maybe there are things we don't know that we should be thinking about. And I just really think that that's you know, another option as well, is like, educate me. I don't know what I don't know. I get that little pamphlet in the mail, and, you know, some people just use that. I think I'd like to spend a little more time on that, but if you can give me some, you know, help me understand what I'm actually voting for, I think that would really, really help.
That's important. Yeah, I mean, again, Google is your BFF in situations like that. You can find you know, there was a thing with Kamala Harris, how everyone was really excited that a Black woman was running for president. She wasn't the first, but first in a while. And, you know, come to find out she was doing a lot of law work that was, you know, putting Black men behind bars for petty drug crimes. So it's kind of like, okay, you're liberal. We have a lot of the same ideals, but are you actually going, you know what I mean? So, and there's always that thing about politicians and yada, 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 but you'll find out like a lot about people's backgrounds. And in that's how you're choosing, you know, where to put your vote. So.
Yeah. But I also, you know, want to give people the opportunity to grow. Like, I think people, it goes back to like, we all make mistakes.
Exactly.
You know, and is there not, you know, if it's a consistent pattern, but
right.
So can we look at somebody's, I can stop today and say, you know what, from this point on, I am going to do things differently because I learned something I didn't know before.
Exactly.
But I don't want everything that happened 5 or 10 years ago to be following. Like, so I do kind of feel like there's
right.
that as well.
Right.
But they have to be really committed, and we have to, you know, believe people when they're going to say that.
And I think that there are certain things we can forgive and try to forget, but then there are some things that, and I'm not naming any names, that some politicians have done that are kind of beyond redemption.
I agree.
So, but yes, to your point.
I totally agree with you. I agree. There are some things that are not forgivable.
Yeah.
I agree. Totally agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I think the last one is buy Black.
Yes.
That's important. I've been ordering takeout once a week to whatever Black owned restaurant I'm feeling at the moment. So
yeah. And the nice thing is in here, we do have a link that when you say buy Black, like we have Black bookstores it links to, right?
Yes, Black bookstores.
Yeah.
I suggest buying any of these books that are on the resource guide at Black owned bookstores. There's plenty that have transitioned from like in store to online because of COVID. So pretty easy to find. And then also, I didn't know about this. I think Elena, Hope Creative's intern, found this source. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it's like a browser extension that helps you identify what brands align with your views. So something that, it's like called progressive shopping. It's amazing. And really helpful. Because also too, we have to keep in mind, like there are certain like very large corporations right now who are supporting people in power who are not part of this progressive anti-racist agenda. So like also keeping in mind, like, are you shopping at CVS? Are you going to Chick-fil-A all the time? Like those types of things. Like it's really important where you're putting your dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw that BLT Recruiting has a list of restaurants in Los Angeles that are Black owned.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's so many great resources. It's amazing.
Yes, exactly. Bloom just said, fast fashion is tied to systematic racism too.
What does fast fashion mean?
So fast fashion, if you think about your like Forever 21s, your Fashion Nova, they're like discounted clothing. So everything's cheap and you're like, oh wow, like yay, I can't wait to get all these new clothes. But like you have to keep in mind like the type of labor that's being used to produce these clothes.
Okay.
A lot of organizations, I'm not sure about Fashion Nova or Forever 21, but there are places that outsource to prison labor, for prison labor. And the people who are working in prison are making like cents an hour to do this type of work. And that is feeding into the, like, you messed up, you're in jail, we're going to do this work and we're not really going to pay you for it. And is that right? Like, am I interested in shopping at a company that empowers that, basically? So that's important. Where are we putting our dollars? Sorry, I keep.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay.
People
no problem.
I put myself on. So buy Black.
I swear to God, my dad always calls. Always calls. I'm like, I texted him, don't call me today between 12:30 and 1:30.
Right, and I appreciate the love, but you know, everyone knew I was on this.
So somebody has a question. Any resources for ethical shopping?
Yes, Rachel.
That's that. Yeah.
This is one of my BFFs. Hey, Rachie. So definitely download the Progressive Shopper. It's like a like a Chrome add-on, and it'll basically tell you, like, for example, I'm looking at it right now, like who are contributing to these companies, what are these companies doing to like actively fight different civil rights issues, and it will really help you like when buying online, and also just doing your own research, like look up what companies are supporting certain politicians. That's what, yeah. And in terms of resources for ethical shopping in general, I really think this add-on's a great resource. But if I think of any more, we'll add it to the Atheneum resource guide.
Awesome. And then I guess before we wrap it up, I want to see if anyone has any other questions.
Yeah.
For either one of us. I
Yeah.
know it's nice that people were kind of asking as we went along, which I think is always really helpful.
Yeah. I think.
So, I mean, we're at 1:15, so we've obviously went over, but this was such a good conversation. I'm so thankful.
I'm so happy. Yeah.
To doing this. I'm excited to keep up our resource guide. I'm really excited to put together a book club. So I saw some people who said they'd be totally into it. I will definitely, we'll put that on our social. We'll share what we're reading, and look at all these people who love you. It's so sweet.
So I will say a majority of these people are my incredible white friends.
I love it. That's
who
awesome.
are empowering and educating themselves on all of this awful BS. So thanks, y'all.
I'm so glad they're here, because believe me, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And we're going to do amazing things together. And it goes back to, you know, everything we believe in, that knowledge is power. Knowledge shared is power multiplied. You've just shared so much knowledge with us.
Yeah.
And that's where we can empower ourselves to do really good things and hopefully change the world.
We will.
Let's think big.
We are. Yeah. Atheneum is like, since you started it, has been on the right track with all this. So, and it is important as like an education platform to just keep pushing this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to say goodbye now. And we'll post this on our YouTube channels and our Facebook and all our other places. So if you didn't see it live, you'll be able to see it whenever you want some great resources to become anti-racist.
Yes, for sure. And Jen, yes, this vid will be available on Atheneum Collective's Instagram page as well as our YouTube. So share, like, subscribe.
Yes, exactly.
Follow Young Scorp on social media for more.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.